Imagine yourself facing execution in a foreign country for allegedly committing murder. Stephen Munyakho has only less than 60 days to provide $1,162,790 to the Saudi Arabia Authority as diya for the murder of his workmate, failure to which he will be beheaded. Yes, you heard me right. This is the story of Kenyan mother Dorothy Kweyu, who has led a long and desperate campaign to save his son from execution in Saudi Arabia jail.
Pitisha pesa ambazo zingemrudisha Stevo nyumbani.
I could have already saved my son by now because the amount that have been contributed, it's enough for the diya, which could have been 100 male camels, which is worthy 11 million, and 100 female camels also worthy 12 million. But there's a lot going on. The victim's family seems not to be satisfied with blood money compensation because of freedom of choice they have. But if it were by the rule of books in Arabic Sharia's law, my son Stephen could be already beheaded.
Kwa hivyo, washauri wake walimwambia kubali kile watakachosema.
But luckily, by his advisor's aid, they convinced Stephen to admit to whatever the victim's family could suggest. Because for them, 11 million, it is nothing compared to the life of their loved one. I'm still grateful for the fellow Kenyans, my family and friends who are continuing with contributions campaigns. It's not easy to raise that amount of money.
It is difficult. People have tried. Watu wamejaribu sana. Yani milioni 20, milioni 12 sio pesa kidogo.
So, at what point did Dorothy Kweyu decide she was going to run the campaign to raise the 150 million required to bring back home his son Stephen, who has been in Saudi Arabian prison for the past 13 years and counting?
Tangu mwanzo ilipoonekana kwamba ile hukumu ya kwanza ya miaka 5 kwa sababu hili lilikuwa kosa la kutokusudia.
From the beginning, after the ruling of 5 years imprisonment for Stephen because it was termed as an accidental murder, being compromised in favour of the widow to the late Yemeni man being granted the private rights by the Sharia laws. The victim's family had nothing to bargain about rather than Stephen's execution. Truly, I have been in deep prayers for the past 5 years. Good enough they changed mind and settled for 400 million. But after long discussion with them, they reduced the blood money compensation to 150 million, which is still a large sum of money. I cannot afford to raise such amount. Look at me. I'm now 75 years old and with no well-paying job. But my younger son always motivates me, and we believe Kenyans are wholehearted people, and I believe we will raise the required money before deadline elapse.
Lakini wakakwamia kwa hiyo 150 milioni za Kenya.
How did she reach that conclusion of letting Stephen go to Saudi Arabia at that young age? So I asked her, how was that possible, letting your firstborn son go out of the country to the foreign land, considering he was only 20 years old?
Last point yake ya kutoka na kusafiria Saudia 1996, mwaka wa 1996, akienda Saudia akiwa na miaka 22 pekee, alikuwa amemaliza form 4.
It was back in 1996 when my son left for Saudi Arabia. He was barely 20 years old, immediately after finishing high school. 17 years later, everything was okay, and I never received any complaints from his employer. My son was man of people, and whenever he visited he had always a special present for every family member and exemplary contact with his workmates. He was a jovial man, that's all I knew of him.
Alikuwa mtu wa kuleta watu pamoja. Akiamua leo mnakula on my ticket, wanakula on his ticket.
Throughout the whole conversation, I learnt how innocent and disturbed Dorothy was. I was much intrigued to understand if he ever had a one-on-one conversation with her son, and maybe if he had a chance to tell her what conspired between the two leading to the death of his workmate. Abdul Swaleh. So I asked her what really happened on that day that led to Stephen's imprisonment.
Story ya Stevo nimeshawishika sana kusema.
I'm now convinced to tell you the truth about my son's story and how he ended up in prison. I have been reluctant to speak about this because I know someone lost his life during the incident. He was a father and a husband too, and also a foreigner from Yemen, just like my son Stephen, though I still believe my son is innocent. But as a journalist, I cannot go around telling tales of what happened because I wasn't present during the incidents, and as we all know, dead men tells no tales. All I can say, my son was wrongly accused at his workplace, and after the truth came out, he was found not guilty. And during that period, he was not paid for 6 months. Now, after the saga, he claimed his pay, but then the rat race began. Abdul started playing games whenever Stephen asked about his 6 months' salary, thus resulting to physical fight between the two. And as matter of fact, the two were very close friends, which left both of the parties seriously injured. And according to the doctor's report, Stephen had no intention of killing Abdul Swaleh. It was just an accident. And if also Stephen wasn't rushed to hospital during the first hour of the incident, he could be also dead by now.
Daktari aliandika ripoti ambayo ilionyesha kwamba Stevo hakujitolea kuua.
But how did she reach that conclusion of letting Stephen go to Saudi Arabia at that young age? So I asked her, how was that possible, letting your firstborn son go out of the country to the foreign land, considering he was only 20 years old?
Yes, have come to realize I did a major mistake by letting him go. He was too young and immature. But it's too late. I have come to have learned this only through my friends who also live in regrets for doing what I did. A child of that age is too young and barely knows nothing about life, especially in a foreign country. And truly, if God could give me a second chance, I wouldn't let such to happen again. Though I used to think, but I never come to imagine such could happen to my son because he went to Saudi Arabia by his uncle's invite, who used to live and work there. I still can't believe and digest all this, considering my son will be the first Kenyan to be sentenced and now going to be executed in Saudi Arabia. I regret doing all this.
We hope listening to Stephen's story provides a lesson to anyone going through a similar situation. If you would like to support Stephen, please contact her mother on the details provided. We give everyone a platform to share their lived experiences. To support our work, please like, share, subscribe to our channel.